A few minutes later.
Are you sure about that?
Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles, and I can finally actually get a video produced today. The kitten's finally gone to sleep after doing the wall of death for what felt like most of the night. And while she's out for the count, I'm going to take the opportunity to actually get some work done uninterrupted. Not that I'm complaining, kitten interruptions are the best kind of interruptions. Anyway, I have to say, you lot have been sending some fantastic World of Tanks replays in this week. And I really was spoilt for choice as to which video to actually make today. I had a couple of cracking replays in mind, and well, then I watched this one. And this is the one you're getting. This is Brent W11 in the FV4005. Yes, it's the shitbarn. Somehow, despite the undeniable fact that this thing is nowhere near as shit as its reputation may have led you to believe anymore, the name has still stuck. And yes, Brent is carrying almost a full load of premium HESH ammunition. But complaining about shitbarns firing HESH is like complaining about water being wet. Firing HESH is basically what this thing is for. This thing is currently on the test server getting nerfed fairly substantially. They're mostly mobility buffs, the top speed's being reduced, the horsepower's being reduced, the reverse speed is being reduced. The gun is also being affected, it's becoming less accurate, taking longer to aim, but what is not getting changed is the 230mm of penetration on the high explosive squash head premium ammunition and the 1750 average damage. And of course, because it's high explosive, even if you don't penetrate, you're guaranteed to do at least 500 damage. And don't forget, the other fun thing about high explosive damage is that tortoise is probably also suffering from a couple of knocked out crew members and trashed equipment modules as a result of that 500 damage non-penetrating high explosive hit. Fun for all the family. The funny thing that I find about this machine was that everybody complained about the Death Star, the FV4005B183, and it eventually got removed, and for those who had it, it became a premium. And this thing has exactly the same gun, and nobody really complains about this thing. Or at least not until it does that to them. Or perhaps they are complaining about it, and I'm just not paying attention. Perhaps that, in fact, is exactly why it's currently undergoing a series of nerfs on the test server. But here's the thing that amuses me. If those complaints are justified, and for the sake of argument, let's say that they are. To be fair, they probably are. It's amazed me that this thing has taken so long to get hit by the nerf hammer. And the nerfs in question, reducing the mobility, making it slightly less accurate, increasing the aiming time. Call me old-fashioned if you must. Call me a bit of a bluff old traditionalist, but I find it very hard to believe that the driver of that AMX-51 is on the forums right now complaining that the shitbarn needs to be nerfed because it's too mobile. Somehow, I really don't think it was Brent's dazzling display of driving skills that most impressed the driver of that enemy tank. And when we're speaking of impressing drivers of enemy tanks, watch this. This is the point where Brent pulls the trigger. That didn't even hit him. That missed, and it still did nearly 700 splash damage. I really don't think it's the mobility that people are complaining about on this thing, and yet that's what's being nerfed. Another beautiful shot coming up here. Watch this Conqueror. Very careful to not hit the spaced armour. Wait for it. Straight into the commander's hatch. Maybe it's the gun. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's what people are complaining about. I mean, I can't be sure, of course. I haven't done any rigorous scientific investigation or anything, but maybe, just maybe, it's the gun. Maybe people are complaining about this thing for exactly the same reason that they complain about the Death Star. Maybe it's things like that. Rather than the dazzling speed with which Brent is backing up. Because I'm pretty sure that's what people are complaining about with the FV4005B183. And they do have the same gun. I am seeing a common factor here. Maybe it's not the mobility. Maybe it's not the aiming time or the accuracy. Maybe, aside from the 1750 alpha damage, it's also the fact that you can deliberately and specifically aim for external modules on a tank. Modules that don't have hull or turret behind them and still splash for anything between 5 to 700 damage. Because I've got to admit, I've got to be honest with you, and perhaps I'm in the minority here, and I just don't understand my audience, but to me, that would probably be more aggravating than the knowledge that the tank that did that kind of damage to me took 3 or 4 seconds longer to get to the spot from where it took the shot. Now, Brent's next shot is kind of disappointing, but I can see why he tried to do what it was that he tried to do. You'll see it coming up here. The E4, like the E5, has a quite strong lower glacis, but the lower glacis weakens towards the sides. So if you're aiming at the lower glacis of one of these things, aim to the left or right and not dead centre. And that's what he was trying to do there, but it missed completely. I think it even sailed right through the drive wheels and just impacted on the road on the other side. The thing is, you didn't need to take that kind of care and precision with the shot, because if you're doing anything between 5 to 700 damage, even with a non-penetrating hit, just go for the non-penetrating hit. You know it makes sense. You don't often really need to try anything fancy in this thing. I mean, there were a couple of shots here that Brent did take care with. The commander's hatch shot at the Conqueror, for example. But a lot of the time, with a gun of this caliber, pretty much all you really need to do is hit the target. So how are things going? Well, the kill on the T-54E1 was kill number 6, so he's got his top gun, and he's done not far short of 6,000 damage, but, well, there are some slightly more serious contenders just arriving. There's a Jaegeru down there, and a Type 4 Heavy. And the Hesh ammunition, while it is absolutely hilarious, is still just a form of high explosive. It's very high penetration high explosive, but it's certainly not high enough to be able to guarantee a penetration on something like a Type 4 Heavy or a Jaegeru, unless you can get around behind them. And both of those tanks have very powerful guns that do large amounts of damage. Not as much as the shitbarn, but still significant amounts of damage. And the shitbarn's gun, while it is hilarious, is mounted in a very big and paper-thin turret. This turret only has 14mm of armour. So if you get into a trade with either the Jaegeru there or the Type 4 Heavy, you're probably going to come off worst. Especially if you're engaging each other from the front. And Brent is not having any of that. So he's disengaging. But on his way out, pay attention. He gets spotted, and as he's crossing this intersection, he gets hit by the Lorraine 155 artillery. Now remember that, bear that in mind, and watch what he does later. Oh, don't worry, I'll remind you, I'll point it out when it happens. Coming up next, in a minute or less, there's another fairly funny moment. First, however, he's repositioning. There's only him and the T-10 left, so this may be a case of too little too late. And it looks like he's decided disengaging, possibly the wrong thing to do, must head back up the T-10, and that's when he notices he's being pursued by a Progetto 46. See if you can spot the moment when the Progetto realises that Brent is aware that he's coming. You could almost see the panic on his face. He came charging around that corner. Swiggity swooty, gonna get me some of that shitbarn booty. Came around the corner. Oh shit, he's facing the wrong way. Slammed the brakes on. Nope, wrong move. Speaking of wrong moves, I don't think a test server nerf to the aiming time would have made any difference whatsoever to the results of that shot. That was a panic move, he was hoping, and it didn't pay off. He saw he had the rear of the Jaegeru. It's probably going to cost the T10, but, unbelievably, the Jaegeru is actually giving him another shot. He does take out the T10, but backing up in order to get the shot at the T10 was so the wrong thing to do. And Brent, of course, jumped all over that opportunity. Now remember what happened the last time Brent crossed this intersection while being spotted. Why did he stop and back up? The Lorraine 155 was waiting to do exactly the same thing, and he anticipated it and dodged the shot. That was impressive. Now we finally come to the point where an argument in favour of a mobility nerf for the FV4005 might actually have some merit. Although, to be honest, I still don't think the mobility of this machine has had much impact on the course of this battle up until this point. We don't know exactly where the Type 4 Heavy is, but Brent is clearly in anticipation of being pursued. But, well, it's a Type 4 Heavy. They don't really do much pursuing. They're kind of slow. The shitbarn, even with the proposed mobility nerf, is still probably quite easily going to be capable of outrunning something like a Type 4 Heavy. Although maybe, I'm not entirely sure the Type 4 actually had a shot from back there, but if he did, you could argue that if the shitbarn had been 2 kilometers an hour slower, the Type 4 may have been able to take a shot. You could argue that, and you'd be wrong, because his sixth sense didn't go off. He saw the Type 4 did not catch sight of him. You might now be thinking, isn't it a bit suicidal to be chasing back to engage in a face fight with a Type 4 Heavy? But Brent was paying attention to the map. At the point where the Type 4 was last spotted, he was turning left, down here. And that means it's time for surprise butt sex. And, yeah. Surprise butt sex. Always satisfying. But remember, as with most things, it's always better to give than to receive. And that just leaves the 2 artillery. And thanks to the narrow miss that he just suffered, he has a general idea of where he can more or less expect to find the Conqueror orbital laser cannon. But that Lorraine 155 is a sneaky son of a bitch. Check this out. Yep. He's lying in wait, using the Conqueror as bait, and attempting, and failing, but at least he tried, to get the side shot into the turret as Brent chases down the Conqueror GC. And I have to admit, the enemy artillery have been very unlucky in this battle. I mean, remember, this thing's turret is only 14mm thick. High explosive hits will do full damage, and yet none of them have. None of them have been direct hits. In fact, most of the damage that he's taken in this battle has been from artillery. So, he's had his fair share of luck here. But at the same time, when you're packing a gun as big as this, you tend to make your own luck. Brent, W11 in the FV4005 Stage II, the shitbarn, with ace tanker, 11 kills, and not far short of 12,000 damage. I'm sure everybody who faces these things in battle will be delighted to hear that the mobility is being nerfed right now on the test server. That's right, folks, don't worry, this thing is no longer going to be able to one-shot you because it's going to move 2 kilometers an hour slower going backwards. Anyway, Brent, thank you so much for sending that one in. I very much enjoyed it. Everybody else, I hope you enjoyed it too. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.